There is a mob in Minecraft which to this day has never been used. A mob which throughout the game's 11-year history has been changed time and time again, but has never actually been properly implemented into the game. A mob which only long-time players of the game seem to remember. A mob which for most players is nothing short of a mythical being, one which could be considered as rare as Herobrine. You see, this mob is strong. So strong that it has one of the strongest attacks in the game, being able to deal 37.5 hearts of damage in just a single blow, more than 6 times the max damage of an Ender Dragon. A mob so strong that it has health which rivals the Wither, and a mob so big that it is over 10 blocks tall. But it is a mob which can never properly spawn in the vanilla game. And that mob is the Giant. Today, we're going to talk about the story of the Giant, the Minecraft mob which was never implemented properly into the vanilla game. Why was the mob introduced in the first place? Why do the developers still keep updating and making changes to it, even though it cannot spawn? Why is the Giant still in the game? Today we're going to go through all that and more, but first let's talk about the history of the Giant and when it was first added. The Giant was first introduced to the game on February the 5th, 2010, over 10 years ago now, in in-dev version 0.31.201.00205. Now unfortunately this version of the game has been lost, and as such all the evidence we have of this version is from blog posts, screenshots and videos. Nevertheless, this update was actually quite important, as it was the first version of the game to introduce the peaceful, easy, normal and hard difficulty options, which you still have in the game to this day. Anyways, the first version of the Giant added to the game was just an oversized version of the zombie, as at the time, Notch didn't have a proper model and used the zombie as make-do. The first ever video footage of the Giant was actually from Notch's own YouTube channel called Nizoch, which he unfortunately has privated all videos. I was able to find an archived version though. The original video called Very First Test Run of Giants on Minecraft was uploaded by Notch on February the 4th, 2010, one day before Giants were added to the game officially. The Giant's earliest versions were fairly basic, but functional still. They were able to walk around and move just like zombies, and also act like a hostile mob, walking towards a player whenever they saw them. But unlike normal zombies, they couldn't really attack. According to the wiki page on Giants, they can only touch or attack players if they are standing on top of them. However, through my own testing, I discovered that Giants can only attack players if the player is somewhat below them, but it is quite buggy and inconsistent. The Giant has 100 health points, which is 50 hearts, and has a height of 12 blocks and a width of 3.6 blocks. The Giant does different amounts of damage depending on the difficulty the player is playing on. On easy, the Giant does 13 hearts of damage, on normal it does 25, and finally on hard it does 37.5 hearts of damage. However, this also seems to be quite buggy and inconsistent, as through my own testing, I noticed it rarely ever did the right amount of damage as the wiki had listed. When attacked, the Giants made the ooh damage noise, which was the same as the player at the time. In this early in-dev version of the game where the Giant was first added, they could actually spawn naturally, albeit buggy, as you can see in Notch's old video. The mob remained mostly unchanged all the way throughout beta into version 1.0.0, but sometime along the way they were changed to no longer naturally spawn, as they were considered overpowered and too strong. No biomes include Giants on their spawn list, and in order for the Giant to spawn, they require a light level of 11 or above, and also a light level of 8 or less, which is impossible, meaning they cannot naturally spawn. That change is undocumented however, but we can assume that it happened before alpha at least. In fact, it's likely it was implemented not too long after Giants were added, as even later inf-dev versions don't have naturally spawning Giants. So now you know the history of the Giant and how it was once able to spawn naturally, but then changed and left untouched up until version 1.0.0. Up until this point, the only way to spawn Giants were through the use of mods such as single player commands, and it seemed that Mojang had lost interest in developing the mob. Strangely, they continue to update it. But before we get into that, consider subscribing, as only a small percentage of you guys are actually subscribed and it really helps me out. No pressure though. Anyways, in Minecraft version 1.0.0, the game's full release, Giants were officially changed for the first time in almost 2 years. The sounds they made when taking damage were changed from the ooh sound to the tick sound, which is similar to the sound players made when taking damage. But still, they were not implemented into the game properly and still couldn't spawn. Then in Minecraft version 1.4.2, specifically snapshot 12W38A, released September the 20th, 2012, the Giant's damage noise was changed once again to be a more updated tick sound. But they were still unable to spawn naturally in the game, and the only way to do so was through mods. However, that would change on October the 25th, 2013, when Minecraft version 1.7.2 was released, and Giants could now be summoned in-game by opening to LAN and using the /summon command. They could also kill players a bit easier, as I noticed. Anyways, now that they were finally able to be spawned without modding the game, surely Mojang would decide to do something with them. Well, no. In fact, only a year later, in September of 2014, with the release of Minecraft version 1.8, the AI for giants was removed. This meant that when spawned in with commands or mods, they would just stand still and do nothing. They could be pushed and attacked, but they would not react, basically rendering them useless. Mojang had effectively killed any functionality the giant had. However, while their ability to actually do anything was completely removed, strangely enough, Mojang also fixed a bug where armor and tools would not render when on giants. So they could now properly wear armor and tools if you summoned one in. This is what confuses me the most though. Why fix bugs related to giants that make it more functional while also completely removing its other functionalities? Anyways, in 1.11, the entity ID of giant was changed from giant with a capital G to giant with a lowercase g. But that is a negligible change, as this update basically changed all Minecraft entity IDs, so the giant was not singled out or anything. But now comes the weirdest changes of all. On October the 24th, 2018, the first Minecraft 1.14 snapshot called 18W34A was released. This snapshot changed the giants for the first time in 4 years, as it seemed prior to this, Mojang had finally forgotten about them. The update was only a minor texture change that is barely noticeable, but if anything, it signified that Mojang had remembered that the giant existed and was finally considering doing something with them. And then, only a few months later, in December of 2018, with another 1.14 snapshot, 18W50A, a whole new wave of changes were implemented to giants. First of all, they were given an AI again, specifically the zombie AI. This meant that they could move like zombies once more, but it also meant that they now burnt in sunlight, which they didn't previously. They also were given the zombie damage sound effect and would make zombie groaning noises. Interestingly, they were given the ability to move twice as fast as zombies, making them really scary as they could actually outrun players. They could also properly hit players now, making them even more of a threat. Mojang made it so that they could attack and infect villagers just like zombies, and also added a baby giant variant. So Mojang had officially made giants functional again. In fact, they were now more functional than ever. The only thing they were missing was the ability to spawn naturally in the game. When this snapshot was first released, based on all the changes, players began believing that after 9 years, giants would finally be properly implemented into the game. And who wouldn't? All these changes look really promising. Well, about 1 month later, in mid-January of 2019, another 1.14 snapshot, 19W03A, was released. This snapshot added a few things such as composters, but also reverted all giant changes from snapshot 18W50A. All those new changes and new AI which was given to the giant was removed, just like that, for no apparent reason, and giants went back to being pointless mobs which have no AI once more. And to date, that was the last update giants have received, and since then it has been about 2 years with no word or mention of giants from Mojang. It seems that they have finally forgot about the giant once more. Alright, so I know this is kind of a disappointing story. Everything was going so well, and it seemed as if giants were finally going to get their spotlight, but then Mojang decided they didn't want anything to do with them anymore. So what happened? Why was there so many updates and improvements for them just to be removed again? Well, there is no official word, so we only have theories. The first theory was that they were going to be included in raids which are being introduced in 1.14. This kind of makes sense, as they were also given the ability to harm and convert zombies to zombie villagers in the original snapshot. However, it's likely that they were removed not long after, as the giants would have struggled to pathfind around a village, and were also probably too big and would likely get stuck or have difficulties pathfinding the narrow and small village areas. I think that this is one of the main issues the giant has, and the reason it hasn't been properly implemented yet. The giant is just too big, and it seems that it would definitely need its own AI and spawning conditions in order for it to work properly. Alongside that, maybe Mojang just thought that it was too strong. As we saw previously, the giant could actually outrun the player in snapshot 18W50A. This would likely spell death for the majority of players, as the giant does massive damage. The giant is more of a mini-boss kind of mob, and Mojang probably don't know what to do with it yet. It also just seems that players don't really care too much about the giant anymore, so Mojang don't really feel pressure to re-add it. When I was reading through Reddit threads and watching snapshot update videos, I was surprised by how little people mentioned the giant changes. In fact, I watched about 5 or 6 different videos on snapshot 18W50A, and not a single person mentioned the giant changes in their videos, with only a few scarce comments bringing it up. So it seems like players have just forgotten or have moved on. But while giants have not seen the light of the game for 10 years now, I wouldn't give up on them just yet. With the recently announced 1.17 Caves and Cliffs update, it seems Mojang is finally experimenting a bit more with Minecraft features that have been untouched for years. In fact, the game is actually getting a mini-boss called the Warden. I think that if anything, the Warden displays that Mojang may begin implementing strong and powerful monsters which can be encountered in the overworld randomly, and not full-on bosses such as the Wither and the Ender Dragon. So who knows, maybe the giant or some variation of it will finally properly enter the game in a future update as a mini-boss or something. Maybe a new biome will be added which is designed for giants and their spawning, but only time will tell. And that's the story of the Giant, the Minecraft mob which has never been properly implemented into the game, but has been continuously changed and updated over the years still. We may never know if it will be able to spawn naturally, as only time will tell. I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was a bit shorter as I was away for half the week and didn't have as much time to make one. But anyways, join the Discord and follow me on Twitter, and also be sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching.